my students are now understanding that we live in a village, because we are talking about villages and towns and bigger places. And when we go on Google Earth and we can be in New York and we are in Dominica, they're like, wow. And so it's that picture for them. For me, it's we are in a village, and it's so amazing to know that others care about what we do and about our children learning and getting the best of this opportunity.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. We are, I think, visiting from all over, which is a wonderful thing. And we have a great guest here. Thank you so much for joining us.
This is officially the most people I've ever had on a podcast.
We have representatives of Giga Connect, which is an incredible organization that is working on behalf of, I think, UNICEF, right, and the UN, to promote connectivity all over the world, which is, we know, first and foremost, a basic human right that people have access to information.
Chris, how did the Giga project start, and what's the reason you got involved with it? Because last time we talked about things, you were doing something totally different a few years ago within the UN.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jesse, and it's really a pleasure, Gerald and Joan, to see you both for the first time, and Natty, as always. When we talked before, Jesse, like a long time ago, for this project, I was working on the UNICEF Venture Fund, which was trying to figure out how we could make investments in open source tech companies all over the world. And one of the things that we kept bumping into when we were trying to put money into these companies that were really changing the world for children, building great tech in really difficult to kind of finance environments, was that connectivity stopped a lot of these companies from expanding. So you could have a great company in Kigali, for example, that was doing amazing stuff, but whether or not that could scale outside of Rwanda, could it get into Central African Republic, could it get into Niger on the west, how far could it go, was really limiting the companies that we were investing in, which were trying to build software and models and data science techniques for children. And so we started Giga as a way to try to make sure that every young person in the world and every school has access to connectivity, so that we could find a way that there was a digital surface that all these startups could be part of, and that every young person who comes out of the schools that both Gerald and Joan teach at could actually find businesses that they want to start in the digital world that we're all so used to.
So what is the ambition of the project? Like, how big is this? What's the mission of Giga?
Right, no small mistakes, only big ones. That's what we aim for. If there's a map that we've got that maps every school in the world that we can find, and this is on projectconnect.world. And you'll see on there that there are about 1.5 million schools, or 1.1 million schools right now. All of the schools in Rwanda are mapped. Many of the schools in the Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean states, all of the schools in Colombia. But there are about 6 million schools in the world in total, Jesse. So we've got like 20% of them mapped right now. We want to make sure that every one of those schools has access to the internet, and every one of the kids in them has access to a fair future. And so our hope is that you'll see a map with all these dots, each dot representing a school, and that in a few years, every dot will be green. And we're already starting. So you can see, like in Rwanda, one of our lead countries, that more and more of the schools are turning green every month.
So how did you get to the idea of doing an NFT? Why do an NFT? You have this huge project going on, but what does the NFT make possible?
Well, our team's experimented with blockchain and cryptocurrency for quite a while. And we've always thought that if your aim is to connect schools and connect people, and that connectivity is something you can see in real time because of digital feedback, like the school turns green, you can see it right away, that you should also be able to pay for that in real time with crypto. I mean, why wait to take money out of a bank and take it in a bag and pay somebody, and all of that stuff doesn't need to happen. So we've always thought that the digital engagements with the system are really important. And payments are one thing. We're experimenting in Rwanda with the Ministry of IT, and also in Sierra Leone, and looking at crypto payments and how we can make sure that we're actually able to pay ISPs and service providers when they turn schools online in crypto. But then we also thought, how do we bring more people into this? How do we bring more supporters into this project? How do we get people excited and involved? And there, NFTs provided a potential open door or open window for us to test out some new things. And the idea with the Giga NFT is that you could make a nice collectible item that people feel some kinship with, that they want to hold, they want to have, they want to share with their friends. That's based on the data. And Nadia will talk all about how amazing the kind of data science is in the art that she's created. And that lets people feel like they're part of this project.
So the initial drop was very, very successful. One of the things about it is that you could want to do this project and drop some terrible art on it and nobody would be interested at all. And your art is not just beautiful, it's also tied to, as Chris alluded to the actual data. So how did you think about it, and what did What was important to you?
It was important to me that each school would somehow be made visible instead of like groupings of schools. Another part that was very important to me was to kind of make this distinction between the schools that are connected to the internet and those that are not connected to the internet, to make that a bit of a clear distinction while still moving more towards data art. So not necessarily data visualization where you explain a lot of things about the data. This should definitely be more towards data art where it's like beautiful to look at, but it's very much based on underlying values, but still having that sort of connected versus unconnected be present easily once you know what you're looking at.
Now, Nadi, you work on a lot of different projects. What spoke to you about this particular project? Because it wasn't a long negotiation. You heard about it and you just jumped right in, so what was it about this that was important to you?
Well, it was just this idea that also for myself, like where would I be without the internet? How has it helped me in my life so much that I mean, I can't even fathom. And then just kind of knowing from that how important it is in acquiring knowledge as a child to be, have a richer future. And I felt like I've gotten so much from it. This seemed just like such a perfect way to give back to that. Plus, it was such a good fit in a way where I could feel like I could use my skills in this combination of data and generative art, and then helping Giga. So that was an easy decision for me.
Now, Joan, you are you a teacher?
Yes, I am.
Now, were you teaching before you had the internet in the classroom?
Yes, I was.
And you have the internet now. You have strong connection. We're talking over strong connection. How has it changed what you do with the kids?
Well, before 2020, we were not involved in online learning at all. Everything was done in the classroom. But since 2020, we were actually just thrown into online learning. So internet connection, we had no idea how strong it was or how weak it was because we did not use it for teaching and learning. However, because we just had to learn on the go, we had to end up just learning everything as we went along. And now we know of the importance of the internet connection and connectivity and technology and all of that.
Do you see that in the children? Do the children come in and they think about it in a different way? How has it changed what you do?
Well, before, the children would have used internet, but for games on their phones or on their tablets or whatever it was, they would play games or their parents use it for communicating with others. But now they realize the importance of the internet and technology for learning. Now it's all about learning. Every time they have a device in their hand, they have to think about learning because that's mostly what we use it for now. So this has changed a lot because even now, as I speak, we are still in online learning. We are not back in the classroom. And so every child with or without a device has to think about internet relearning.
Gerald, how has it been for you when there was no internet and now? Has it changed things in the classroom?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Before, as John said, we never gave value to internet before. It was not until the COVID pandemic came, it's when we realized that we had to continue with our studies. Our school actually made it a deal to provide some internet to school so we could move as teachers and be in the rooms in the hall, conduct lessons. It really changed the learning compared before. This time, children are able to explore, to learn deeply, to make research by themselves. They have been able to engage with the learning sites. And also, when I compare the communication before, our students had to wait until they reach school to inquire a question maybe from the teachers. But nowadays, it's just a matter of commenting in our online classes. Our homeworks have been and activities have been so easy now. We no longer carry files. We assign students online. So it has made the work easier and more convenient.
Now, have you seen in the kids a difference now that they have access to these things? Do they seem like they're excited about it? Does it take them to a new place?
Yeah, greatly. They are really so excited. They enjoy the online platforms. Actually, in my class, so whenever I tell them you're having an online activity, they just have to scream. They say, wow, this is so good. Other than whenever I tell them now, this is an assignment I've printed in your files, they say, boo, this is not good. So they are so excited in learning with their gadgets.
Funny story, before at UNICEF, long time ago, before a lot of things, I was a teacher. So I taught secondary school in Lebanon. And I remember how exciting it was for us to be able to use as a school that had really good internet, even when I was there 5,000 years ago, but how exciting it was for us to use the internet for lesson plans, and how different it was from like assigning 40 pages of reading versus being like, let's look at this interactive map and do something. And it totally changed the way that we could relate. We were suddenly building things together with students rather than being this teacher like brings the book and leaves it on the thing and now you all have to read it. And I think we can do that in every school. And so it's great to hear from both Joan and Gerald. We see it all over the place. When you have teachers who are able to access this whole digital space with their students, it changes the way that learning happens, I think. I mean, that's what I keep seeing and I keep hearing.
I found when I was younger, I used to love to go to the library, but the internet is like the biggest library in the world. Do you, Gerald, find that your kids, does it allow them to see something, to start to think about themselves differently? What are the good aspects of the internet that they're getting?
Yeah, when you just talked of the library, but to me, it is actually library, it is a laboratory, it's everything, because we can watch experiments in case they can't access the laboratory. They say we're online, you can still, I teach science, and I find myself being able to practice the experiments, science experiments, following the YouTube videos. And children can actually learn, though they are not really touching the equipment in the laboratory. Students can even take virtual trips. Let's say I can be in California and we can take them to the parks. They can be able to see the wildlife without actually physically visiting the places. So it is really bigger than being a library, but it is everything.
Gerald, when you go for the wildlife, do you go to Tanzania? Where do you go?
Yeah. I have to go for Akagera Park. So
Yeah.
we're able to see the savannah in the Akagera. And it's so amazing.
I wanted to just sort of jump in to really kind of bring us back to this project. So Nadi's created, this incredible, beautiful art. But, the bigger idea here is that people around the world can care about what's going on in your school. And so by, purchasing the NFT, we can all sort of help to participate. And I just want to know what it might mean to have this feeling of community and what that means to you, to know that like a lot of people care, that we all get access. Have you thought about that? And just, I'd love to hear from both of you, what that might mean for you and for your school and your community.
It's just so amazing. And there's not many words I can put to describe the feeling, because just to know that we are in this small island where a lot of persons do not even know where Dominica is located. And to think that somebody all the way over there is thinking of ways that can help us to meet our needs, because for us, it's a number one need now, because we are in the online and it's going to be like that for a while. We had internet before, but the connection wasn't that good. So it's better now. And to think that it's not just us. I mean, my students are now understanding that we live in a village, because we are talking about villages and towns and bigger places. And when we go on Google Earth and we can be in New York and we are in Dominica, they're like, wow. And so it's that picture for them. For me, it's we are in a village, and it's so amazing to know that others care about what we do and about our children learning and getting the best of this opportunity.
Yeah, and Gerald, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a great deal, though it comes with its challenges, whereby you find most of our communities, they find the expensive maybe to purchase the gadgets for the students. And there are also at times the mentality of the communities find out to know that really a student needs to have a computer. They find it as if it's something luxurious and not part of learning. So at times we find ourselves to need of educating the community at first for them to really get that awareness. So we need to raise up all the communities in the awareness of the need of the internet. Otherwise, it is really a thankful to the GIGA and the whole community that is doing this great job.
I think what was really exciting when we first learned what Chris was doing, though, was that there's so much, money involved to kind of solve these problems. but governments really should be working, we know, ideally on behalf of people. And the idea that people should be solving people problems globally, to me, I feel like this could be, it's like a signal, a little bit of a lighthouse about how we might be able to move forward. There's so many, obviously, problems around all over the place that are not just about connectivity. So to me, it's just kind of an inspiration, Chris, about what is possible if we let people around the world try to help each other. I mean, it's very optimistic for me. I mean, it's a very wonderful idea.
How do you, like Gerald's talking about being able to go to New York or to go to go to Mandela Park or all these places that are far away. What does it do for the community? Like just looking down the road a little bit, the fact that these kids have seen this bigger world, does that affect the community as they grow up? Do they want different things as they grow up, in your mind?
It will definitely affect the community because these are the children who are here today, but they are the future. And so if they are thinking differently and seeing things differently and seeing so many more opportunities than just what we have here that they know, because some of them have never left the communities that they live in. They don't even know Dominica itself, where we live. And so if they can see all of this out there, then it definitely changes the way they think. And tomorrow we will have different persons, different personalities. We'll have different persons doing different jobs. We'll have different persons who want to explore the world and maybe be another Chris, another Nadia, and so on. So we will definitely see it benefiting the community in the long run, because a lot of persons, and sometimes it's their parents, and they can't give them what they don't have. So we at the schools and as teachers have to be able to fill in that gap, because the parents know what they know and that's it. And a lot of them are not computer literate, so they have no idea how to pass on this information. So I think it's an excellent opportunity to change one child and change one island, one community, and the world by extension.
Gerald, your school has internet. Do you know schools that don't have internet around you?
Yeah, exactly. I know very many. Actually, yesterday I was able to visit one of school in my neighborhood where I found the whole staff of the teachers not even having a Gmail account. So in case of anything, this pandemic, their students have to stay home. So we have a quite large number of schools that really don't have any connection, or even they may have a connection, maybe a router around, as I said, in the administration block, but then students are not able to access it or even have a gadget. Not only students, but as well as teachers. So it's a quite big number.
So Nadi, this is pointing out one of the things that was important to you about the token. This is one school has internet, and then just a little bit away, they don't have an internet. So how did you approach this project? Because you really came up with the idea of what's in the token. How did you approach it?
I first tried to do it more geographically, where I would pick a certain area and try to visualize that, but that actually changed into something different, where right now it's more, I was inspired by just trying to use universal things, because this is about many different cultures and countries and schools across the world. So I was thinking about, squares and circles and rectangles. And then I remember building these sort of little cities with the wooden block set that my dad had and that I played with as well, like how these simple shapes could build up to form something greater. And that I kind of like that connection also with schools, and then that schools can also connect together, and then they can become something greater as well. And that's also become sort of a red thread throughout it, which then led me to the internet to look for inspiration, where I found work by Mary Blair that she did on It's a Small World. There's kind of these little cities, these little kingdoms built up out of sort of basic shapes, basic building blocks. And I thought, well, what if I take all of these schools and I turn each school into a little square, and then each square will be decorated in different ways based on their underlying data, and then together they will build a kingdom. And then you have basically a vibrant kingdom of the schools connected to the internet, building upward into the sky, very vibrant. And then there's sort of, in this sense of fairy tales, there's this hidden kingdom that is going towards the downward side, so it's pointing down. That has these schools that are not connected to the internet. They're kind of missing that part. They're hidden from the other schools, and where everything's more muted and the symbols are more muted as well, simpler. So that's how I kind of approached the design in this sense, where that came from.
Now, Chris, you saw it and you loved it immediately. What was your thought? Because when we were trying to find an artist, the data was important. Nadi has both the data and the art together. So when you first saw her work and then you saw the piece, it just flew right through. What were your thoughts as you saw it?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, to Joan's comment, what we actually need is probably not more Chris's, certainly not more Chris, maybe not more Nadi's, with respect, but like many more Geralds and many more Joans in the world. And what I saw, if people haven't looked at it as you're listening to the podcast, go and look at the Patchwork Kingdoms website. It's so amazing to see all these schools come together into a larger building. And that's, I think, what struck us on the Giga team so much about the work, that it's exactly to this point. So like when I was a teacher, one of the things that my kids loved the most was to connect to other kids, because that's what kids do. And when you can say, there's another school right over there, right over that border, right over the boundary, right over the thing that maybe the government talks about a thing, but you're a kid, you don't know about that. You just want to connect to other kids. That building of a larger world is the most amazing thing, an eye-opening thing for a kid. Right. And so this art shows that you can stack these schools together. And then fundamentally, we're all so similar in what we want in life. And a kid, for sure, she wants the same things as every other kid around her. And if you can help them learn by being part of something bigger, it lets us start chipping away at some of these problems that seem so impossible in the world today. And so I think it's very hopeful in that sense.
Chris, we built this big community. We have 1,000 people have bought the tokens. What are your thoughts about the future of this community? There's millions of people around the world. Like what can we do as individuals to help this along?
I mean, what we'd like to do, I'd like to see the next version of this token actually be linked to the schools themselves very concretely, so that the school can have a token, the teachers can have one of these pieces of art, they can share it with their kids, and those kids can start connecting to other kids through this digital space in a way that's safe, that teaches learning, kind of capacity learning skills, and that is fun. A lot of times these projects also aren't fun because they're very big and they're very corporate and they're very government, and none of those things are fun. But if we can make it enjoyable to connect and to connect schools to each other, we see the next version of this NFT project and of Giga's work with NFTs as being much more directed at the schools themselves and at the teachers who are doing all these incredible things in the schools, and making it a much more playable, game-like space for exploration and connectivity.
This is wonderful and exactly what we hoped we could jumpstart here. We'll send it back to you, Chris. We want people that are watching this to go to these websites, first about Giga, and then please go to the Patchwork Kingdoms. We'll put that also in. But any last words, Chris, Nadi, anything you want to let everybody know?
I'm so happy to have met both of you, Gerald and Joan. I'd love to be in touch, more. I see the PolyUp sign behind Gerald. It's a wonderful group that's doing all this online learning. And I was part of one of these groups that connected kids from Palestine and Azerbaijan and Rwanda just a few months ago with that group. So already I think there's a lot here in this podcast for us to follow up on. But it's been really nice to hear what both of you are working on, both of the teachers. And if there's any way we can be in touch, over time and share these stories more, we'd love to. And then to involve you in thinking through what the next version of our token looks like. Because I would just say, Priscilla, as a former teacher, like, it's very important to be a lazy teacher. Like, you don't want more work to be put on you. You want to do the things that are efficient for your class. And I was always the laziest teacher, but anything that I could get given that would help make my class better, help make my students learn better, that I didn't have to do a ton of work to figure out how to incorporate it, was great. And anything that was like the opposite of that was horrible. So we'd love to work with you and with some of the other teachers in our Giga schools on how to make this next piece be really useful in the classroom and really help kids learn in a fun way that grows over time.
Amazing.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to see you.
Yeah.
Be well, be safe wherever you are. Have a good evening, afternoon, morning.
You're welcome.
Bye, you guys.